This is an informal session of April 6th, and we have presentations from several groups: Department of Job and Family Service, Board of Developmental Disabilities, Mental Health and Recovery Board, and Senior Services. We're going to start with Children's Services. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Judy Eschman. I'm the Director of Clermont County Job and Family Services. And I have to learn to multitask. I'd like to thank you this morning for giving me an opportunity to talk about Children's Protective Services. It's one of many programs that are administered through Job and Family Services. I'd like to also thank the community for their current support through a local levy for supporting our children and keeping Clermont County children safe, and hope that they'll be able to continue to do that. Our number one mandate in Children's Protective Services is to protect children. That mandate is a mandate given to Children's Services. It's not shared by another organization. And we do that in several ways. So what do? We investigate allegations of abuse and neglect. And we get those allegations through our Children's Services Child Abuse Hotline. And that hotline is 732-STOP. And those calls come in from family members, from neighbors, from school districts, medical providers, nurses, doctors. Anyone can call that line. We also work with families to create safe homes for children through education, through treatment, and through services. My organization provides some education and some services, but more often than not, we contract with the community to provide education, treatment, and services to our families. And then we find forever families when reunification is not an option. When families are unwilling or unable to provide a safe home for their children, CPS then begins the adoption process. So that's what a forever family is. Let's see. When we talk about investigating allegations of abuse or neglect, we're talking about allegations of physical abuse. Last year in 2014, Children's Protective Services investigated 593 allegations of physical abuse. Almost 600 reports for kids in our community. These include things like unusual bruising, broken bones, shaken babies, babies born testing positive for illegal substances. There are many kinds of physical abuse, but these are some that are most common. We also investigate sex abuse or sexual abuse, and in 2014, Children's Protective Services investigated more than 186 allegations of sex abuse against children. And these allegations and substantiations range from inappropriate touching to photographing nude children to sexual intercourse with children. We also investigate child neglect. And in 2014, we had 551 allegations reported to us of neglect of children. And again, this could be all kinds of neglect, but some common ones are young children being left home alone, or children living in rodent or insect-infested homes, or parents failing to provide medical care to their children. When we are unable to keep children safe, once we substantiate an allegation, and if we're unable to keep the children in their home safely, then we have to remove the children. We currently have today about 340 children in the custody of Children's Protective Services. 40% of those children are removed because their parents have opiate addictions that prevent them from safely parenting. And that's just opiate. That number is slightly higher when you look at all drug addictions, but opiate tends to be the biggest issue now in Clermont County. We always attempt to place children with family members first when possible. So where does child abuse occur? It occurs in every township and in every municipality in Clermont County. It occurs at every socioeconomic level. This is a map of Clermont County with all the townships, and the stars represent every zip code. And every zip code in Clermont County in 2014, we had a report of child abuse or neglect. So there's no place in Clermont County last year that was not touched by child abuse. Some new initiatives that we implemented last year One is differential response. Clermont County rolled it out in July. It's a nationally recognized child welfare business model that allows an alternative response option for responding to allegations. Ohio actually implemented it about 7 or 8 years ago, and every year a certain number of counties roll, so it's their rollout phase. Clermont started last year. Each county's differential response model looks different depending on the county. It looks different because each county has a different level of services they can offer. You know, how many community partners do you have? What's the stakeholders doing in the community to help provide treatment and education and services to families? And it also is dependent on your tolerance level in your county for child abuse and neglect. So every county's model looks different. This new model provides 2 what we call pathways. When we get a report of child abuse or neglect, we either handle it traditionally, like we always have. We go into the home, we look at the incident that was reported, what did the call say, and we substantiate whether that abuse or neglect happened. Depending on what that level of abuse or neglect was, we then would either remove a child to keep them safe or provide some services in the home to prevent it from happening again. This new model is called the alternative pathway, and we're actually using it with our neglect cases. These are kids that aren't at a safety risk. We are actually engaging families. We're trying to be more proactive and positive when we meet with them to say, we understand something's not right in your household. Help us understand your family dynamics. Help us understand what's happening today that cause children to be neglected. And let's work together so that you as the parent can have some say and help you find a model that you can live with. We can teach you how to use it, and you're going to use it tomorrow and the next day and the next day. The nationally as well as statewide, and even here in Clermont County, while our data is fairly new, we haven't even been using this model a year, we're seeing less recidivism. Parents are engaging this new interaction with us. They're getting treatment, they're getting education, they're getting services, and they're learning, and they're using what they're learning moving forward, so we're not getting repeated calls. The second new initiative was not really a job and family services initiative. It actually was Judge Shriver through the Family Dependency Treatment Court. But for a family to be involved in Family Dependency Treatment Court, your children had to have been removed by Children's Services. So it's somewhat of a joint initiative. I believe we currently have 5 families working with that court. And that court meets regularly with these families. They have the treatment team talking on a regular basis about treatment and how parents are doing in an attempt to help move them to success and support them through their treatment. So how do we pay for the funding in Children's Services? About 8% of our funding comes from state funding. About 43% comes from federal funding. And federal funding is tricky because most of that is reimbursement. So you have to pay for the service up front and then ask for the reimbursement. And the reimbursement rate currently is 63.2%. So for every dollar we spend, we get 63 cents back. And that's 63 cents back based on whether the child was actually 4E eligible, meaning that there is an eligibility criteria for the family. And that eligibility is based on income and resources. We've already said that child abuse and neglect happens at all socioeconomic levels. So we have lots of kids in care that we get no reimbursement for. And then lastly, we have local funding, which is about 51%. We have a 0.80 mil levy. Now, all of those percentages are 102%. And the reason for that is our federal reimbursement. That whole process is so convoluted that when the day is done, it's 100% funding, but at any given time, that's what that looks like. So what does it cost to continue to protect children in Clermont County? According to the Clermont County Auditor, it'll continue to cost the owner of a $100,000 home $23.67 a year. It's the same amount that we asked for through the last levy. We're not asking for additional dollars. We're really hoping that these new initiatives that we've started will help us take the money that we were spending on out-of-home placement for our neglect cases and be able to reinvest those dollars into services and treatment in the home. and be able to do it with the exact amount of money that we have currently operating with. That is the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I wanted to offer that if anyone had any, if you want additional information, please contact me. My phone number is 732-7212, or at my email address. If anyone's interested in having someone from my organization come out and do a presentation, we'd be more than happy to do that and answer questions that individuals have about child abuse in Clermont County.
So this is a renewal of a how many year levy?
It's a 5.
5.
5 year. And you're planning to be on the ballot?
We'd like to be on the ballot in November.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Any questions from anyone in the audience? All right.
Thank you.